The Health Ministry had previously announced that it will be instituting the HIV self-testing mechanism later this year as a means of reaching persons living with HIV who are unaware of their status and those at a heightened risk of acquiring the virus. This approach, which is recommended by the World Health Organization, would allow persons who want to know their HIV status to collect a specimen and perform their own test using a kit in the comfort of their own homes, after which the results are presented to the individuals. However, members of civil society groups and HIV/AIDS counselors who spoke with Nightly News on the basis of anonymity have raised concerns about the self-testing for HIV. They outlined that a crucial part of being tested for the virus is pre- and post-counseling and interventions by support groups, which may not be possible if persons are allowed to conduct the tests on their own. They highlighted that a new self-testing methodology, if not properly instituted, could garner negative reactions from people who may deny the results, resulting in a potential increase in the country's suicide rate and give rise to societal issues. Contrary to these views from persons actively involved in HIV testing and counseling, in a recent exclusive interview with Nightly News, former Paho WHO country representative Dr. William Adukrow expressed that self-testing would be a step in the right direction for the country to effectively respond to HIV.
Many countries have adopted that, and it hasn't shown that they test at home and they go berserk and say, okay, now I'm positive, okay, I'm going to infect my whole village. No, it hasn't panned out. So I think there are a lot of good things to be discerned from that. Once you test positive, you know that there are things that I can do in my life immediately to prolong my life or to lead a normal life. And not only that, also to help prevent me giving the HIV to my loved ones.
Dr. Adukrow drew attention to the United Nations Program on HIV/AIDS, UNAIDS 1990 goals, which states that self-testing aids a country in the achievement of the first goal. The target stipulated by UNAIDS outlined that 90% of all people living with HIV should know their status. 90% of all people diagnosed with HIV should receive sustained antiretroviral therapy. And 90% of all people receiving antiretroviral therapy should achieve viral suppression. So far, Guyana has surpassed the first target, which suggests that 90% of persons living with HIV know their status. Though evidence in other countries that have implemented HIV self-testing does not show historical responses to this approach, Dr. Adukrow opined that there should be systems in place for persons who are taking the test to easily reach a medical personnel if the need arises.
There must be a line of communication whereby you can always reach a healthcare worker. Oh, I just did this test. It's indeterminate. What does that mean? I just did this test. It says it's positive, but I did it last week. It says it's negative. What does that mean? So there will be some line of communication to deal with such cases. And I think once we have that, because I have a strong feeling that Minister mentioning it means that there will be an enabling environment to support that.
He suggested that the testing kits should be easily accessible to the general public.
But also persons belonging to the key populations, the high-risk groups, of course, they must have that as well. If it can be made free, fine. But for the general for the general population, if yes, they should be able to buy it and have a test, just like we have pregnancy tests at home.
Last week, the United States Embassy and the Ministry of Health announced an additional $1.5 million of support to combat HIV in Ghana, courtesy of the United States President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, PEPFAR. The funding will support 8,700 people living with the virus to ensure they have access to medication. Temika Rodney reporting for the HGP Nightly News.